UFC Fight Night. Marlon Moraes, #1 ranked in the bantamweight division, is facing off against Cory Sandhagen, #4 in the bantamweight division, man. We got a lot of good fights on the card for this Saturday, but before we get into that, I want to introduce my guy, AJ. How are you living, bro?
I'm doing well, brother. I'm doing well. It's good seeing you again, my man. How you living?
Right on. I'm doing well, man. I'm riding my high horse after last Saturday because I got a couple wins under my belt. So really quickly, I just want to break it down. So myself and AJ respectively, we did pretty damn good, man. I went 4 for 6 on my picks. AJ went 3 for 6, 50% or above. I mean, you got to take it, right? And there's only a couple things that really stood out that I want to get AJ's opinion on. So AJ, bro, JDR, Germaine De Randamie, she got her first career submission. First in her whole entire career. And she secured that with a guillotine choke in the 3rd round versus Julianna Pena, whose specialty is submissions in the ground game. What did you think about that, man?
Man, I don't know if I got the exact number correct, but I'm pretty sure it was only 2% of the population of Verdict that even guessed this correctly. And I think it was a complete left field chance, even if you got it. You were just looking to gain some crazy points. And I was absolutely blown away. I mean, the guillotine choke, it's a classic. It's a natural. And it was impressive, you know? What do you think, Derick?
Well, I just want to note that it would have been much more impressive if she would have landed the sub that she locked in the 2nd round, which is actually a Von Flue choke. Like, she almost got her with the Von Flue choke and then ended up hitting her with the guillotine. She let everyone know, GDR did, that if you leave your neck open, she will put you to sleep. I thought it was very impressive, but I also thought that it showed a little bit of a flaw in GDR's game because I thought she was going to walk right through her. And it still goes to show that she has a little bit of trouble facing off against those grapplers and the people who will take the fight to the ground. But with that being said, that's not even the biggest thing of the night. The biggest thing of the night is New Mexico representing, man. I said I would eat my words if I was wrong, but I was not wrong. And AJ, you're going to have to eat this one, man. Holly Holm got a huge victory over Irene Aldana in what was considered to be a boxing aficionado versus an MMA fighter, when in reality it was Aldana, a boxing aficionado, versus Holly Holm, an MMA fighter who was at one point considered the greatest female boxer of all time. So you got to put the respect on her name. I hope that me standing up so tough for her has shown you folks at home, you got to respect the preacher's daughter. AJ, my question to you is, what did you think about the fight, and do you think Holly Holm is ready for another title shot against Amanda Nunes?
Well, first, Derick, I got to say, sometimes in life you are forced to eat a big slice of humble pie. And I'm very glad that humble pie got served from the proud state of New Mexico, okay?
Right on.
Other than that, I think the fight went well, man. Holly Holm showed that she still got what it takes, man. She straight put it to Aldana, and it was good to see. It was reminiscent of the old days, and she looked just as fit as she has over the past years. Is she ready for a shot? I think always. That's the kind of thing with that 135-pound division that Amanda Nunes is in. Anyone's always ready for a shot, but it's a hard fight against the champ. It's the champ. What do you think, Derick?
Man, it's Amanda Nunes we're talking about here. So as much as I was impressed by Holly Holm's performance, it's just tough for me to truly envision anyone beating Nunes at this point. But she's nursing a baby right now. She's playing, the parent role. So maybe that's a chink in her armor. Maybe Holly Holm has the opportunity to jump on one of Amanda Nunes' belts, right? But last thing regarding last Saturday's fights for UFC Fight Island #4, Josh Coolabah versus Charles Jourdain. It was actually, if you're a betting person and you play fantasy lineups for MMA like I do because I'm a nerd, Charles Jourdain was one of the highest priced fighters because he is known for, throwing a million strikes during the fight. He faced off against a Josh Coolabah who nobody knew who his name was. I added him in the sleeper. I just want you folks to know, remember that name. He proved why he belonged on the UFC stage. But with that being said, let's enter in some sleepers for this Saturday for UFC Fight Island #5. AJ, if you don't mind, start off for me, my man.
Of course, brother. I'd love to. My first sleeper is Giga Chikadze versus Omar Morales. Now, Giga Chikadze, his name is hard to say, but trust me, you're going to learn it real quick. Chikadze, he's 6 foot, 32 years old. He's on a 5-fight win streak, 10-2 in his career. You know, he got 6 of his 10 wins by KO, and he's super, super tall for the weight class. Biggest thing that I like about this guy is kicks on kicks on kicks on kicks. He's going to be sending them hard. All right, Omar Morales, you know, he's 10-0. He's coming up, young and hungry savage. He is young. I said young. He's young in his career. He's a 34-year-old man. Like I said, 10-0 though. Very fast jab, all pressure. Thankfully, in this fight, they're both actually pretty tall. One's 6 foot, one's 5'11". So the height advantage and the range advantage is going to be very similar. I think we're going to see a very technical, very fast striking match, and it's going to be fireworks from the get-go. What do you think, Derick? What's your sleeper?
Well, this next sleeper that I have, I don't know if anybody who is watching this right now will have heard of either of these fighters, but I saw one of these fighters on Dana White's Contender Series because, you know, that's the farm system, right? So my sleeper, number one, is women's bantamweight division. I have Tracy Cortez facing off against Stephanie Egger. Now, this is a really interesting matchup because you have two pseudo strikers, and I call them that because from a glance they got some like flashy, decent striking, but when you realize after you watch some film study, all their striking is a setup for the takedown. That's what both of these fighters want to do, but there's one huge differentiation between the two. So Tracy Cortez, 7-1-0, she's 1-0 in the UFC. Stephanie Egger, 5-1-0. This is her UFC debut. Stephanie Egger is tall, man. She's 5'8" and she's 135 pounds. Excuse me. Just think about that. She's a very, very large fighter for the weight class, but she fights long. And you know who she reminds me of? She reminds me of a poor man's Holly Holm. And the reason why I say that is because she's got the movement. She'll blitz in with those straight punches and set that up for like a hip toss or something, try to mount you and then beat you up with big hooks, big elbows in the ground and pound. Now, I don't know if she's going to be able to do that to Tracy Cortez because what you need to know about her, she's a very strong grappler who uses crisp striking to enter the clinch. She uses her body knees and her punches to transition from the clinch to the double leg, so she's very good within that transition. And she's not content to lay on her back. She's going to find a way to get up. Stephanie Egger, like I said, she's big, she's long, she's gonna look for the full mount, and she's going to ground and pound you to end the fight. And that's what I got for this one. What's next, AJ?
Man, next up, I got my boy Chris Daukaus versus Rodrigo Nascimento. Now, we talked about him before, and I'm gonna hear about him again. Derick, Chris Daukaus is coming, and he is big and fast. He likes to throw that heavy leather. Like I said, I've mentioned his name before specifically for this because he's coming to fight and he's coming to end the round early, or end the fight early, excuse me. Only one of his fights has been able to last the actual distance. And other than that, I think it's only one fight other than that to make it out of the second round into the third. Of his 9 wins, 7 of them are by KO. I'm a big fan, and like I said, he's real fast for that big boy weight class. You know, he's quick. Rodrigo Nascimento, now he's 8-0, another undefeated. It seems to be kind of the ratio of this whole fight card. A lot of undefeated people are coming in, and so Nascimento, he's from Brazil, 6 submissions, very nice stand-up, very underrated, and he likes to control the octagon. So 2 people, full pressure coming at each other. I think the biggest difference is Nascimento's always looking for the clinch and the takedown, whereas Chris Daukaus, he's cool to let the hands fly anywhere or take it to the ground. So again, I'm looking from heat being thrown right from the get-go. It's going to be an exciting fight. What do you got next?
Right on, man. Well, I got 2 middleweights who are both coming off of very, very tough fights, respectively. So my first middleweight is Impa Kasanganay. And I'm going to tell you what, man, if you haven't heard about this man, you're about to find out this Saturday. He's facing off against Joaquin Buckley, who both of these dudes are powerhouses. Both of these dudes look like they are chiseled bodybuilders who are ready to knock your head off. Now, here's the difference. Kasanganay, who really looks like he should knock your head off. He's 8-0, but he's 1-0 in the UFC, and he has no knockout wins. When you watch him fight, it's the most surprising thing to see because he hits like a truck, but he has 0 knockouts. He has 2 submission wins and 6 decision wins to round out that record. Now, Joaquin Buckley is a pure powerhouse, 7 knockouts, 3 decisions. You know what he's coming to do. This is what you really need to know on why this is going to be an incredible sleeper. So Impa Kasanganay, he proved he has an iron chin in his last fight versus Maki Pitolo. That's coconut bombs right there. He ate bombs all day long with relative ease. He masks his left hook as a jab to set up his 2-3, which is one of the meanest combinations I have seen in MMA thus far. The way he flicks the 2-3, that right hand down the pipe, left hand is gonna. He took off Maki Pitolo's ear gauge tapes, almost ripped his ear gauge out, just hitting him with left hooks all fight. And lastly, he has really underrated footwork, and he hits like a truck. And in his last fight, he was still breathing through his nose in the third round, so cardio does not seem to be an issue. As for Joaquin Buckley, his last fight was versus Kevin Holland. So first off, Buckley has a 73-inch reach versus Holland, who had like an 81-inch reach, 79-inch reach, something like that. Him and Kasanganay both have 73-inch reaches here, so he throws with bad intentions. Buckley throws with these bad intentions, and nearly every single punch you can audibly hear the man swinging, especially because there's no crowds. Now, he beats up your breadbasket, so he's willing to do the work it takes to tire you out in the later rounds. And if you're a leg kicker like Kasanganay is, Buckley likes to catch your leg kicks and throw a big right hook over the top. But the one thing he needs to be careful for is he needs to learn how to check a couple kicks, because Kasanganay is going to come in hot, and there's going to be a lot of bruised skin, bones might be broken, all that, man. This is going to be a crazy fight. I'm really incredibly shocked that it's not on the main card and that it's buried so far down below in the prelims. But luckily for you folks, you get to check it out for the F for free. Make sure you watch this fight. AJ, what you got next?
Now, next up, Derick, I chose this sleeper specifically because I mentioned it before. Desperation makes a beast out of any man, right? And now this next sleeper, Tom Breeze versus K.B. Bular. Tom Breeze is set up in a desperate situation. Now, the casual fan that's been watching him the last 2 years might not really know him, or if they do, they know him from him getting beat up by Brandon Allen in the first round. Now, the thing about Tom Breeze is he's been here for a long time. 11-2. He's been long time in this game, but he took a really long 2-year break between 2018 and 2020. So he's looking to come back, and he's looking to prove something to himself to really see if he has the wit and has the grit and determination to stay in this league. Very strong southpaw, and I think a very underrated boxer. Now, KB Bular, again, another undefeated. Like I said, it's the show, So 8-0. This guy took the fight on short notice, and again, another desperate situation. He saw the opportunity, he took it, and that's really why I chose this whole fight, because it's two guys who need that win. KB Bular, he actually has a fight scheduled in the Contender Series after him. He pulled the Khamzat Chimaev before he even could. How everyone is hyped that Chimaev was about to get 2 fights. Well, this guy went ahead and did it because he has a Contender Series booked, and he's going to fight a week or 2 before that with this fight card. And I love that. That's the kind of thing, like we always say, Derick, don't get ready you have to stay ready so you don't have to get ready, excuse me. And that's exactly what Bular did. And man, you got to respect it from my side of the fence. So I'm really looking forward to this, and hopefully they provide a show. What do you got next?
Well, just to add to what you said right there, man, that's what I love about the UFC right now is it's literally like if you're not ready to fight right now, well, you're not getting a fight. So there's people who are saying, I don't care who my opponent is. I will be ready in 2 weeks. Put someone in front of me in that cage, lock the door, let's get it on. So, I know you love it, AJ. That's what I live for. So good times in the UFC right now. Now, for my last sleeper, I got 145 pounders here. I got the Moroccan Devil, Youssef Zalal. He's facing off against somebody who is very, very unknown. Now, this is a Georgian by the name of Ilia Tuparaya. And what you need to know about this is Zalal is coming from Factory X Muay Thai. I don't know if you know about that, AJ, but this is not a gym that you need to be sleeping on. Zalal, his footwork is legit, and you know what they say, man. You can't hit what you can't touch, right? Having that Muay Thai background, which I love. Shout out to my girl Loma Luke Boon Me from the last card, man. I love the Muay Thai fighters, the Angela Hills of the world as well. But his Muay Thai background, along with being able to be such a switch fighter, he'll throw a shot from anywhere, southpaw, orthodox, it doesn't matter. It makes him incredibly dangerous. Elbows and knees, baby. You know what time it is. And lastly, man, Youssef Zalal, he earned his UFC contract in the LFA with the flying knee to just completely sleep his opponent. Now, he almost had a walk-off knockout with a spinning back kick to the face of Peter Barrett in his last fight. It was almost the same exact thing. Barrett ended up surviving, and it went to a decision win. But this dude has that type of potential in any one of his strikes. So the dude he's facing off against isn't going to let him do that to him, though. And here's the reason why. Ilia Tuparaya, he's 8-0. It's his UFC UFC debut. He has 1 knockout on his record. Nice, solid, cool. 7 submission wins. This is a BJJ black belt who does not try to fool anybody about what his game plan is. In his fight against Brian Bouland in Cage Warriors, which is also another UFC kind of farm league, right? Tuparaya secured a double leg at the start of the fight, and he put it to his opponent, man. He put his opponent to sleep within 2 minutes. From the start of the fight, shot the double leg, made him, you know what I mean, imposed his will and submitted him with an anaconda choke in 2 minutes. It's that type of dominance. Obviously, it's the LFA, but it's like a Khabib type performance where there's nothing you can do. You know he's going to take you to the ground and you're just going to have to endure it. So lastly, man, his stand-up is flashy, but just like I said earlier, it's just a setup to get the takedown on. So we have the striker versus the grappler. Let's see who's going to win. What do you got next, AJ? Or is that your last one? I do this every episode.
It's the last one. This is actually the first fight of the main card if you want to roll right through it.
Right on. Yeah, first fight of the main card. Let's do it. And that's, what am I just talking about? Zalal versus Topuria. So Topuria, man, 88% submission rate. Zalal, amazing footwork, flashy fighter. I'm going to start on first on this one, and I'm going Zalal decision. What do you think, AJ?
Man, like you said, I think the most impressive thing to me about Youssef Zalal was that flying knee KO to get that UFC contract. Unfortunately, he hasn't had a finish since, but boy, can he strike. And another aspect I really like, because it's confusing to a lot of other fighters, is his switch stance. Very tricky. Now, like you said about Tupuria, man, his submissions are on point, but like the UFC has proven, it's the ultimate proving ground, and competition here is a whole another 2 steps up from where he was. Personally, I'm going Zalal decision.
Right on. Well, next up, we got some big boys, man. We got Tom Aspinall, who's facing off against, this is French, so please, my French roots, don't let me butcher this, Alain Boudot. I think it's Alain Boudot, you know what I'm saying? But the point is here is I'll start off on this one. Tom Aspinall, last 4 fights have all been knockouts within the first round. Dude is a BJJ black belt, and he's actually a former professional boxer. So what I'm expecting here is a clinic, man. Don't get me wrong, Boudot, he has a few tricks up his bag, and one of those tricks is a spinning elbow, which I think could get unleashed at any moment. But he's not a true heavyweight. I don't know if you know this, AJ, but he's a 205er that's taking this fight at heavyweight. So I'm going Aspinall, knockout first round. What you got?
Man, yeah, like you said, 6 of 8 wins by KO. Tom Aspinall's looking good. And what I like about him, Derick, you always talk about it, that 2-3 is savage. But what I really like about Tom Aspinall, he has a very clean 1-2, and he really looks for it all the time. In his last fight, he froze his opponent with a solid knee right to the gut that just literally froze his chin up so he can get the KO. He's a striker that knows how to go for the finish. Alain Boudot, I'm pretty sure you were correct with the pronunciation, at least I hope anyway. He's making his UFC debut at 32 years young, 7 of 8 wins by KO, and you're right, he is looking to make a huge splash in the UFC, making this actual appearance. So I'm looking for that kind of flashy strikes, but at the end of the day, I think it's going to be Tom Aspinall, KO, round 2. Going for it. I don't know.
Right on. All right. Well, hey, next up, we got Marcus Perez versus, now forgive me on the names, this is a tricky one as well. I believe this is Dricus du Plessis. And we got a Kung Fu fighter in Perez who is facing off against, once again, very, very unknown, but a dude who is going to try to choke you to sleep or, mangle your arm or something. Du Plessis got 9 submissions and 5 knockouts. So before I give my pick, man, you go first, AJ. Who do you got on this one?
Yeah, of course. So actually, I really, this fight's kind of interesting to me because Marcus Perez, like you said, I don't know if you said this. I was over here reading 6 submission wins. My bad, brother. 6 submission wins. But what stands out to me is all his losses come from decisions, right? So he's really looking to actually kind of finish what he started and actually finish the fight. What also impressed me about it is, he kept busy. He kept busy during Corona, and he had a grappling match in August. Now, Du Plessis coming out, making his UFC debut. He has 9 wins by sub and only 1 fight that has made it to the 3rd round. So he's a quick striker. He's looking to finish this early. Unfortunately, though, I'm looking to go Perez, KO, round 1.
Wow, interesting. It's interesting you say that because I mean, yeah, when you give a little bit of the background between these two, I mean, on paper, I would want to go Perez too, especially with the UFC experience. But the one thing that I did want to note is that Perez is actually a small 185er. So he's not the biggest in his class, and the one area of his game that I see as the most vulnerable is being pushed up against the cage. And if there's one thing that Duplessis does good, it is control his opponents against the cage. He'll put the backpack on you, legitimately, like Aljamain Sterling. He'll put the backpack on you. He will keep you locked up against the cage. He'll keep you in that clinch. And I think he's going to be a little bit too strong for Perez. So with that being said, I'm going Duplessis with a decision win, and I really anticipate this being to the average fan, very boring fight locked up against the cage. AJ, you want to announce the next fight?
Yeah. Next up, man, I'm actually really excited for this fight. Big Ben Rothwell versus Marcin Tybura. It's going to be a banger, man. These big boys know how to bring it. I'm really excited. And I said this in the last fight, too, about Carlos Condit. But if you're a fan of fighting, then you love Ben Rothwell. He's one of the few old school, like I would consider gatekeepers of the UFC. He's been out here taking off heads for the last, 10 plus years, 38-12. He's been doing it since the beginning. Not only will he knock you out, but his 10-finger choke will put away the most experienced of fighters. This dude's legit. He's been on an up and down lately. 2 wins of his last 5 fights. But he's back on. He has fought a who's who of savages as well, so I'm really excited to see him perform and kind of get back on the winning side. Marcin Tybura, again, another well-rounded fighter who's been just putting on the fights for years. Lately, he has had another up and down, cycle for the past years, but he's fought killers like Fabricio Verdum, Andrei Arlovsky, Derek Lewis, Sakai, like the list goes on and on. This dude's straight savage, okay? But I think Tybura's kind of finally hit that nice stride of a UFC fighter where he's gathered all that experience for the career, but is still young enough to kind of put it into motion and actually not be written off by the casual fan. You know what I'm saying? For this fight, though, I'm looking for Big Ben Rothwell to come in, swinging hard, KO round 1, make a statement. What you got?
Wow, right on. Well, like you mentioned, right? Tybura, he's fought the Augusto Sakai's, he's fought the Derek Lewis's, but we do have to point out that he lost both of those fights. And I think that when I watch tape on Tybura, I like what I see, don't get me wrong, but what I see here is a striker versus a grappler. Tybura, he's throwing up, he's throwing up about, 1 to 2 takedowns a fight, you know what I mean? Like he will try to take the fight to the ground, and he just doesn't look big enough to me. With the last official weights that I have is Tybura at 252 and Rothwell at the 265 limit. So Rothwell's coming in. He's a big boy. And so as a quick aside, we've watched fights before, you and me together, where Rothwell was fighting. He had just kind of got back in the UFC after I think he had a drug suspension or something like that. But I put all my Rothwell every time. I was like, bro, you guys don't know who this guy is. But what I've learned about him is that it depends on what version of Ben Rothwell shows up to the fight that really is where you need to put your money on, right? So it seems like he's got his groove back. In his last 2 fights, I believe he has a knockout win and he has a split decision win. But I'm very, very I'm not feeling great about this, but I'm going Ben Rothwell decision win. But it depends on the Ben that comes. If he comes to fight and if he doesn't get complacent and keep staring in the mirror and just, my one note that I wrote down for this fight was I hope that we don't see a lay and pray matchup from these two. So if we see some striking, Ben Rothwell decision win.
So I know next up we have Edson Barboza versus Makwan Amirkhani. Now, Edson Barboza, he's another legend in the sport, and he has a lot of killers on his resume, right? He's been on a real rough stretch, but at one point he was one of my favorite kickers in the game. His switch kick was that of legend, and but he really hasn't looked the same since the Khabib fight. It's kind of expected. Khabib's an absolute savage. I'm looking to see him get back on his horse. Now, our Amirkhani, he's coming up, and he's a savage. No joke. This kid is no joke, okay? 9th fight in the UFC, but he's really starting to gain some of his traction. With wins over Jason Knight and Danny Henry with his last one, he was real impressive with that anaconda choke. He's really starting to prove that he needs to step up in competition, so we can see what this guy's made of. 11 submissions, very smooth and relaxed southpaw. But personally, I'm excited to see Edson Barbosa come back and establish who he is and the legend he is and make his way back to a run. What do you got?
Right on. Well, hey man. So the way that I look at this is Edson Barbosa, number 14 ranked in the featherweight division. He only has one win since March of 2017. So there's that to be said. But his last two losses are by split decision to Dan Ige and Paul Felder, and these are real deal, legitimate fighters, man. This dude is gonna beat up your legs. We already know about the kicks. We know about the switch kicks. We know about the knees. We know what there is to know about Edson Barbosa. But in terms of Makwan Amirkhani, this dude trains, so he's a 145er. He trains with dudes who are around, I believe they said it was like 80 kilos. So that's like, let me think, 180 pounds for their grappling, right? So listen, man, he's going to go for the takedown. That's the thing. That's the difference between these two fighters. We have a striker and we have a grappler. Amirkhani striking is nice, but he's going to go for the takedown. I think that if he locks in a choke, man, he can get it on you. He got the nice anaconda choke, as you pointed out earlier, AJ. Real quickly, just a couple fights ago, man. So I'm going to Amirkhani. I'm going submission, round 2. And the next one we got is the main event. What you got next?
Man, this one, it's for the casual fan. I don't think a lot of people are excited for this. Marlon Moraes versus Cory Sandhagen. And I think a lot of it has to do with the weight class, yes. But Marlon Moraes is just overlooked entirely, right? But if you pay attention, Moraes has some savage in him. His kicks are solid. His ground game has been proven strong. He has wins over savages like Rafael Assunção, Aljo Sterling, Jimmy Rivera, John Dodson. Man, this list goes on. This dude has proven his worth to the UFC, and he's I'm excited to see how this hard test against Sandhagen is gonna go, because Sandhagen is a killer, right? 28 years old. He's 12-2. They do have a couple of similar opponents in Assunção and Aljo. The big difference is Sandhagen lost to Aljo Sterling by armbar, but he did beat Rafael Assunção by decision. The big difference is Marlon Moraes put them both away in round 1. So, I mean, on paper, you're going to think Marlon Moraes has the advantage here, but I really think Sandhagen, with his height, now, like I said, 5'11" in that division, he's pretty tall. I think he's going to be able to tactfully break down Marlon Moraes and utilize his reach advantage to really pick him apart. I still think it's going to go to the decision, though. Cory Sandhagen. What do you got?
Interesting, man. So Marlon Moraes, what do we know? Power, kicks. I mean, come on. But does he have 5-round cardio? It's when we talk about this dude every single time, it's the same exact story. Power, kicks, lacks the cardio. It's right. He gets people out early, man. We're talking about similar opponents. Moraes gets these guys out early, but Sandhagen is a stud, man. And the thing about it is he's big. He's so big for the bantamweight class, man. He's 5'11". He has a 3-inch reach advantage on Marlon Moraes. Marlon Moraes is only 5'6". So, like, when you watch these two in the octagon, it's ridiculous, you know, when you just see the size disparages. At the end of the day, man, Sandhagen is a master of range. And when you have a master striker versus a master at range, things get a little tricky, a little complicated. So, ultimately, man, Aljamain Sterling already showed us how we could beat Sandhagen. You put the backpack on him and get him out of there in 88 seconds. He already displayed that. It's very simple. But the difference that I see here is that Marlon Moraes might have lost a little bit of confidence after that Henry Cejudo fight, man. You know, I think that if Sandhagen can get those kicks to the breadbasket, get those going early, and try to play on the cardio, it's going to be a long night. Of course, this is a picker, man. Who am I to pick a dude who just got, you know, submitted in 88 seconds to beat a world beater like Moraes? But here I am picking him. Submission, round 4, Cory Sandhagen. AJ, man, with that being said, we gave them the sleepers. We gave them the picks. Do you have anything else of note for this card, man? Do you got any other words for the people?
Man, I think biggest takeaway for me is watch Chris Daukaus's fight. I'm telling you guys, he's coming. Other than that, Marlon Moraes or Cory Sandhagen is going to be a banger. I don't know, Derick, what do you got?
So it's basically what you got, man, except instead of watching Daukaus, which you still should watch Daukaus, don't get me wrong, Impa Kasanganay. I cannot talk in greater lengths about this person. Real quick, AJ, have you watched him fight before? Have you seen, just not tape, but like, have you just been watching an event and seen him fight?
Man, I watched a couple fights just to brush up on who your sleepers were, but I didn't really take notes, and I haven't really seen much of him before, so
I'm glad. I'm really glad about that, because when people watch this dude, you're going to be like, this is only his what? He doesn't even have 10 fights yet. When I was watching him put a clinic on his last opponent, man, I just felt bad. And that's how I hope you guys can head into this weekend knowing that it's going to be bad intentions thrown in there. That's all we got for you. Let us know who you picking. Go on the verdict. Go put in your picks. Like I said, I went 4 for 6. I got me a little gold medal in the whole joint, man. So hopefully AJ and me both are in the money. So until next time, folks, peace.